Hello, if it is your first time, welcome to my channel, Listen Sense. I am a reading enthusiast who loves to share creative works with you. I tend to focus on writings like stories, poetry, and prose. If this is not your first time, welcome back. I am glad to have you here again. I have been sticking to specific messages or themes for each video where there will be underlying similarity in each piece. This video is a little different from the others in that this video is all works by Dorothy Parker that we have yet to cover, as well as I'm going to try and explain some aspects of poetry so that we can really appreciate the works that Dorothy has made. Before we get into it, quick trigger warning for the mentions of abortion and suicide. I will give you a moment to think it over before we continue. Okay, so when collecting writing for this channel, I actually started with her pieces, most recently released to the public domain. So you'll probably recognize her name if you've watched my other videos so far. I find a lot of her work to convey humor and a lot of wit, while still adhering to perfect poetic form. She is as greatly admired here as she was by her peers when she was living. If you don't already know, poetic form relates to poetry like how genre relates to movies. There are rom-coms, slashers, action, thrillers, found footage, which is usually horror, noir, etc., etc. In order to fit into these categories, there must be certain elements present related to plot or how the movie is shot in order for them to fit. With poetry, instead of category, it's referred to as form. Some examples are ballad, haiku, epic, ode, villanelle, ghazal, and about 160 other forms as well, apparently. So, Dorothy Parker was born in 1893 in New Jersey, but grew up in New York's Manhattan area. She never attended college, which surprised me. I think nowadays people wanting a career in any sector must have a degree before pursuing that career. At about 20, after losing her mother by the age of 5, and now experiencing the loss of her father, she kept herself afloat by playing piano at a dancing school while she practiced her poetry. In 1914, at around 21 years old, she sold her first poem to Vanity Fair magazine. Not very long after, she was an editorial assistant for Vogue magazine. She was definitely making her way in the writing world. By 1925, she was in her first marriage and being put on the board of editors for the newly founded magazine, The New Yorker, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And by 1935, she had moved to Hollywood and was writing the script for the movie A Star is Born, alongside her second husband, Alan Campbell, which was recently remade starring Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. Dorothy Parker has an extensive list of writing credits to her name since she was successful in poetry, short story writing, script writing, and her critiques and reviews. At the end of her career, she wrote book reviews for Esquire magazine, which became erratic apparently due to her alcoholism. It seems as though Dorothy's mental health had been tumultuous for a majority of her adult life. She fell into depression and attempted suicide after an abortion in her 30s, which likely aided in the alcohol dependency. I almost added the fact that she was living through the Great Depression that lasted from 1929 to 1941, which left so many American families impoverished and struggling. But during this time, she was at a point in her career where she was making $1,000 a week by 1932. I'm not sure if it's $1,000 in today's value, adjusting for inflation, or literally $1,000, which is the equivalent of like $22,000 in today's value. All of that to say, I don't think finances added to her mental health struggle like I initially assumed. I think I am so used to the struggling artist, paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet before you make it big kind of idea surrounding having a career in the arts. Um, all of that to say, I don't think finances added to her mental health struggle like I initially assumed, but the lady lived through both world wars. So even though work was good, that didn't mean that life was easy. The Great Depression for her did lead to a wave of fighting for civil rights and standing up to unjust authority figures. You see, Dorothy was Jewish, and this led her to help found a group called the Hollywood Anti-Nazi League in 1936. This caused the FBI to put her on a watch list under suspicion of her being a communist and starting this group for communist reasons, which there is no evidence of. She was also involved in many left-leaning efforts such as the Joint Anti-Fascism Refugee Committee, which all led to her being listed as a communist in the 1950s and her being blacklisted from Hollywood. At the end of her life, she left her estate to Martin Luther King Jr. I highly recommend looking into her, as this little summary barely scratched the surface of her life, if you're interested. For my videos, I discuss what I take from the piece before reciting it to kind of familiarize you before listening, so it's easier to digest and take meaning from, since poetry can be a bit of a puzzle at times. I am in no way formally educated in writing or poetry, but in this video I'm going to try my absolute best to introduce to you, if you don't already know, 3 basic elements of poetry that make poetry poetry. They are stanza, rhyme, and rhythm. We're only going to focus on stanza for now, but by the end we will have gone over all of them. Stanza is easy for the most part. The way I see it, it is another word for paragraph, as it's a group of lines. We will begin with Ballade of Big Plans, and you'll see that it's a poem containing 3 stanzas, or 3 groups of lines. I feel this poem doesn't need much other introduction. It's not a love poem as much as it's a poem about love. Here we go. Once the orioles sang in chorus. Once the skies were a cloudless blue. Spring bore blossoms expressly for us. Stars lined up to spell Y-O-U. All the world wore a golden hue. Life was a thing to be bold and gay at. Love was the only game I knew, and love is a game that 2 can play at. Now the heavens are scowling o'er us. Now the blossoms are pale and few. Love was a rose with thorns that tore us. Love was a ship without a crew. Love is untender, and love is untrue. Love is a moon for a dog to bay at. Love is the lady that's known as Lou, and love is a game that 2 can play at. Recollections can only bore us. Now it's over, and now it's through. Our day is dead as a dinosaurus. Other the paths that you pursue. What is the girl in the case to do? What is she going to spend her day at? Fun demands, at minimum, 2, and love is a game that 2 can play at. Now, I'm going to bring up the fact that this poem is a ballad. Again, poetic form refers to the different ways a poem can be structured. Like, if I'm going to the grocery store, I'll write a grocery list. A list is one way to write information. If I want to put a reminder on the fridge with a post-it about something that I don't want to forget, that short piece of info is a note. If I want to write down a ton of info on some paper, put it in the mail, and send it to someone, that would be a letter. These are all examples of different forms of writing we use in everyday life. Sorry if this bores you, I just thought it'd be nice to learn. Now, for ballads, there's usually a rhyming pattern where the last word rhymes with the last word of a following line. It could be the very next line or skip the next line and rhymes with the following one. For example, this next poem, News Item, is only 2 lines that rhyme one after another. It reads, "Men seldom make passes at girls who wear glasses." Ouch, but you see, one after another. But the next poem, called For a Sad Lady, has 4 lines, where the first line rhymes with the third, and the second line rhymes with the fourth. It reads, "And let her loves, when she is dead, write this above her bones. No more she lives to give us bread, who asked her only stones." And there we have another element of poetry, rhyme. Now for rhythm. Rhythm is so difficult to define for me. My first thought is that rhythm is the beat we find in the poem, using syllables to guide us. Rhythm and rhyme are similar in that there is a distinct pattern we are following, but unlike rhyme, where we are matching the sounds of the last words of lines, rhythm involves the full line. Rhythm and another thing called meter go hand in hand when discussing poetry, and meter was on the list of things to discuss, but then I started researching more and more, and I got overwhelmed and deleted meter off of the list. So, we will save meter for another day. In the next poem, Portrait of the Artist, starting with the first line, every other line has exactly 8 syllables. Then, starting with the second line, every other line has exactly 7 syllables, making every stanza a 8-7-8-7 pattern. She also uses what's called a rhymed quatrain, meaning every stanza of 4 lines follows a pattern where, according to resources online, the second and fourth lines must rhyme, but the first and third don't have to. Luckily, since we're learners here, in this poem, every first and third line rhymes as well as every second and fourth, so it is very musical and pleasing to the ears. There is contrast to the mood and meaning of Portrait of the Artist, and that it feels depressing and bleak. Here we go. Oh, lead me to a quiet cell, where never footfall rankles, and bar the window passing well, and jive my wrists and ankles. Oh, wrap my eyes with linen fair, with hempen cord go bind me, and of your mercy leave me there, nor tell them where to find me. Oh, lock the portal as you go, and see its bolts be double. Come back in half an hour or so, and I will be in trouble. For rhythm, we take what we know about syllables and figure out which are stressed and which are unstressed. To stress a syllable kinda means to emphasize it. For example, the word Nana, another word for grandmother. Nana has 2 syllables, nan-a, nana, 2, with the first syllable being the stressed one, nana, nana, right? So if the second one was stressed, it would sound kind of odd, like nana, 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 nana. But poetry can follow a distinct pattern of stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, or unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, or even stress, stress, unstressed, stress, stressed, unstressed, and the inverse of that. Whereas in the way we speak normally, there is probably no pattern. So a line saying, Nana brought me brownies, first breaking down the syllables would be Nana brought me, brow, knees. Second, we identify which are stressed, which would be Nana brought me, brow, knees. And let's say I tap on my little laptop here every time I say a stressed syllable. Nana brought me brownies. Nana brought me brownies. Nana brought me brownies. There's a beat. Now back to the poem. First, let's take every line with 8 syllables and identify the stressed syllable. Since this is a poem, it is a pattern of unstressed, stressed. Oh, lead me to a quiet cell and bar the window passing well. Oh, wrap my eyes with linen fair, and of your mercy leave me there. Oh, lock the portal as you go. Come back in half an hour or so. Now, let's do it with all the 7-syllable lines. Where never footfall wrangles and jive my wrists and ankles, with hempen cord go bind me, nor tell them where to find me, and see its bolts be double, and I will be in trouble. Do you see how the beat is like with 8 syllables, but with 7 it's Now let's do the whole poem one more time. Oh, lead me to a quiet cell where never footfall wrangles, and bar the window passing well, and jive my wrist and ankles. Oh, wrap my eyes with linen fair, with hempen cord go bind me, and of your mercy leave me there, nor tell them where to find me. Oh, lock the portal as you go, and see its bolts be double. Come back in half an hour or so, and I will be in trouble. See, now, there are other types of rhythm and rhyme, like alliteration is sometimes called front rhyme, like tongue twisters. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. You could tap on every S word, you know? Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. And you have a rhythm there not based on stressed and unstressed syllables. You could also, I feel, do another beat. So instead of Sally sells seashells by the seashore, Sally sells seashells by the seashore, Sally sells seashells by the seashore, Sally sells seashells by the seashore. 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 You get it. There's tons of different types of rhythm, especially once you get into like music. And if you're wondering why, it kind of sounds like I'm rapping. Not well, but you know, just give me that. It's because RAP, rap, has always been a acronym that stands for rhythm and poetry. It's just different from the rhythm usually found in traditional poetry. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so back to Dorothy. I feel it's important to be able to notice poetic form when we see it, because by doing things like learning rhythm and noticing rhyme, you get the full effect of the poet's effort and skill. Writers that are able to communicate full thoughts and concepts and generate mood and provoke emotion while maintaining a specific structure or form throughout deserve recognition. The next poem is called They Part, and I feel you can guess based on the title what it's about. 2 things to note is I find it cool that one line has the word blank written as just a blank space. And depending on how you pronounce the word higher and usual, the poem may or may not follow a 8-6-8-6 syllable rhythm. Here we go. And if, my friend, you'd have it end, there's naught to hear or tell. But need you try to black my eye in wishing me farewell? Though I admit with an edged wit in woe is warranted, may I be frank, such words as blank are better left unsaid. There's rosemary for you and me, but is it usual, dear, to hire a man and fill a van by way of souvenir? Next we have Nocturne. It has the same feeling as the last poem. Here we go. Always I knew that it could not last, gathering clouds and the snowflakes flying. Now it is part of the golden past, darkening skies and the night wind sighing. It is but cowardice to pretend, cover with ashes our love's cold crater. Always I've known that it had to end, sooner or later. Always I knew it would come like this, pattering rain and the grasses springing. Sweeter to you is a new love's kiss, flickering sunshine and young birds singing. Gone are the raptures that once we knew. Now you are finding a new joy greater. Well, I'll be doing the same thing too, sooner or later. Next we have Symptom Recital. There's definitely a change of format for this one. It's 20 consecutive lines, no breaks, with a lot of repetition and a very funny ending. Here we go. I do not like my state of mind. I'm bitter, querulous, unkind. I hate my legs, I hate my hands. I do not yearn for lovelier lands. I dread the dawn's recurrent light. I hate to go to bed at night. I snoot at simple, earnest folk. I cannot take the gentlest joke. I find no peace in paint or type. My world is but a lot of tripe. I'm disillusioned, empty-breasted. For what I think, I'd be arrested. I am not sick, I am not well. My quondam dreams are shot to hell. My soul is crushed, my spirit sore. I do not like me any more. I cavil, quarrel, grumble, grouse. I ponder on the narrow house. I shudder at the thought of men. I'm due to fall in love again. Next is Story of Mrs. W. In this one, it's also 20 lines, but it's that rhymed quatrain we were talking about. Almost every single line follows the pattern of having 8 syllables. Almost exactly. I think it's only 2 that doesn't. And it just feels like she's telling us the story or the day in the life of this Mrs. W. Here we go. My garden blossoms pink and white, a place of decorous murmuring, where I am safe from August night and cannot feel the knife of spring. And I may walk the pretty place before the curtsying hollyhocks and laundered daisies round of face, good little girls in party frocks. My trees are amiably arrayed in pattern on the dappled sky, and I may sit in filtered shade and watch the tidy years go by, and I may amble pleasantly and hear my neighbors list their bones, and click my tongue in sympathy and count the cracks in paving stones. My door is grave in oaken strength, the cool linen calms my bed, and there at night I stretch my length and envy no one but the dead. Next we have Paths, which leaves me with an ominous feeling. Here we go. I shall tread another year ways I walked with grief, past the dry, ungarnered ear and the brittle leaf. I shall stand a year apart, wondering and shy, thinking, here she broke her heart, here she pled to die. I shall hear the pheasants call, and the raucous geese. Down these ways another fall, I shall walk with peace. But the pretty path I trod, hand in hand with love, underfoot the nascent sod, brave young boughs above, and the stripes of ribbon grass, by the curling way I shall never dare to pass to my dying day. Fighting Words is our next piece. Hopefully you have started to see a pattern where Dorothy uses the last line of a poem like a punchline to a joke. She does the same here. Here we go. Say my love is easy had, say I'm bitten raw with pride, say I am too often sad, still behold me at your side. Say I'm neither brave nor young, say I woo and coddle care, say the devil touched my tongue, still you have my heart to wear. But say my verses do not scan, and I get me another man. Next is Renunciation, and in this poem is only 16 lines, 2 stanzas. It has a lot of names that I had never heard of before, so I looked them up. I still might not pronounce them correctly, so I will apologize now for that. Here we go. Chloe's hair, no doubt, was brighter, Lydia's mouth more sweetly sad, Hebe's arms were rather wider, languorous, lidded Helen had eyes more blue than ever the sky was. Lilasia's was subtler stuff. Still you used to think that I was fair enough. Now you're casting yearning glances at the pale Penelope, cutting in on Claudia's dances, taking Iris out to tea. Iole you find warm-hearted, Zoe's cheek is far from rough. Don't you think it's time we parted? Fair enough. Next is The Choice. It's another humorous one. She says, He'd have given me rolling lands, houses of marble and billowing farms, pearls to trickle between my hands, smoldering rubies to circle my arms. You'd only a lilting song, only a melody happy and high. You were sudden and swift and strong, never a thought for another had I. He'd have given me laces rare, dresses that glimmered with frosty sheen, shining ribbons to wrap my hair, horses to draw me as fine as a queen. You'd only to whistle low, gaily I followed wherever you led. I took you, and I let him go. Somebody ought to examine my head. In the next poem, The Dark Girl's Rhyme, it seems to me that Dorothy describes a sort of forbidden love between two people. She says, Who was there had seen us, wouldn't bid him run, heavy lay between us, all our sires had done. There he was, a springing of a pious race, setting hags a-swinging in a market-place, sowing turnips over where the poppies lay, looking past the clover, adding up the hay, shouting through the spring song, clumping down the sod, toadying and sing-song to a crabbed god. There I was, that came of folk of mud and flame, I that had my name of them without a name. Up and down a mountain streeled my silly stock, passing by a fountain, ringing at a rock, devil-gotten sinners, throwing back their heads, fiddling for their dinners, kissing for their beds. Not a one had seen us, wouldn't help him flee, Angry ran between us, blood of him and me. How shall I be mating, who have looked above, living for a hating, dying of a love? Dorothy Parker's next poem, Lullaby, is another one with a punchline. It reads, Sleep, pretty lady, the night is enfolding you. Drift and so lightly on crystalline streams. Wrapped in its perfumes, the darkness is holding you. Starlight bespangles the way of your dreams. Chorus the nightingales, wistfully amorous, blessedly quiet, the bear of day. All the sweet hours may your visions be glamorous. Sleep, pretty lady, as long as you may. Sleep, pretty lady, the night shall be still for you. Silvered and silent it watches your rest. Each little breeze, in its eagerness, will for you murmur the melodies ancient and blessed. So in the midnight does happiness capture us. Morning is dim with another day's tears. Give yourself sweetly to images rapturous. Sleep, pretty lady, a couple of years. Sleep, pretty lady, the world awaits day with you. Girlish and golden, the slender young moon. Grant the fond darkness its mystical way with you. Morning returns to us ever too soon. Roses unfold in their loveliness all for you. Blossom the lilies for hope of your glance. When you're awake, all the men go and fall for you. Sleep, pretty lady, and give me a chance. Next we have verse for a certain dog, and Dorothy does something very clever where every fourth line is in parentheses, almost like an offhanded remark. Here we go. Such glorious faith as fills your limpid eyes, dear little friend of mine, I never knew. All innocent are you, and yet all wise. For heaven's sake, stop worrying that shoe. You look about, and all you see is fair. This mighty globe was made for you alone. Of all the thunderous ages, you're the heir. Get off the pillow with that dirty bone. A skeptic world you face with steady gaze. High in young pride you hold your noble head. Gaily you meet the rush of roaring days. Must you eat puppy biscuit on the bed? Lance-like your courage, gleaming swift and strong. Yours the white rapture of a winged soul. Yours is a spirit like a May-Day song. God help you if you break the goldfish bowl. Whatever is good, your gracious creed. You wear your joy of living like a crown. Love lights your simplest act, your every deed. Drop it, I tell you, put that kitten down. You are God's kindliest gift of all, a friend. Your shining loyalty unflecked by doubt. You ask, but leave to follow to the end. Couldn't you wait until I took you out? And lastly, a short poem that is also one of her most popular pieces. It's called Resume. Here we go. Razors pain you, rivers are damp, acids stain you, and drugs cause cramp. Guns aren't lawful, nooses give. Gas smells awful, you might as well live. The motif for this video is based on this poem. I decided to make a person heading for a trash can, hauling a trash bag over their shoulder. In it is a pill, a razor, drugs, rope, and all the things she's telling us to give up on. And that concludes our video for today, my friends. Thank you again for joining me. Really, I can't thank you enough for watching this video. If if you'd like to support me, feel free to also like and subscribe to my channel. And please comment down below and let me know what your favorite piece from today was. It would help a lot. Goodbye for now, and I hope to see you next time.